Hey, what's up, everybody? BDL44 coming at you with another video. All right, so the Boston Celtics tie up the series in Milwaukee 116-108 to win Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. And what you saw was Al Horford go completely and utterly nuts. Homie walked out of there with 30 points, a bunch of boards, helped out defensively, something fierce. Most of his points came in the fourth quarter. He just went to a different place with his gameplay tonight. His career playoff high 30 points. You want to look at Jason Tatum as well. He went off for 30, even though his shot selection tonight wasn't the greatest. He bounced back and had a big game for his team. Looking around at the Milwaukee Bucks, of course, you want to give Giannis his credit. He was awesome as usual. His efficiency wasn't there, but he still tripped in huge. Brook Lopez played very well for his team. But unfortunately for the Bucks, when you look at the stats for the team stats for this game, you don't see too much that separates these two teams. Really, it's just the field goal percentage for the Boston Celtics that really stands out. They shot 50%. And then you look at Al Horford and realize he was 11 for 14. So he was where the great efficiency comes in for the Boston Celtics. He was the great difference maker for this score. However, when you look at the Bucks and say, okay, what went wrong? What really stands out, unfortunately, is the anemic shooting of Jrue Holiday. 5 for 22. They were not able to overcome that. You can point at a lot of different things that went wrong, including the Bucks not really playing as great defensively as they had been. And you started seeing the Celtics kind of get into the paint, which the Bucks had done a fantastic job of clogging over these last several games. But for whatever reason, I guess they just couldn't keep the Celtics out of the paint today. It's really strange how things go, because you remove one player and you insert another, and it can change things a lot. What I saw down there was the Bucks got a lot smaller because they brought George Hill back. And while George Hill played very well, I thought he played good minutes. He wasn't a problem. What he does is just change things. Now you don't have to account for as much size if you're the Celtics, because he's a smaller guy. Now it's easier to get certain rebounds in certain situations because he's a smaller guy. Now, you saw situations where they were substituting in such a way to try to make the size made sense. Like, for example, there was a situation where they subbed out Grant Williams to bring in Al Horford because they had a rebounding issue that I saw Ime Udoka try to patch up. So what you saw was that even though these are the same two teams, because you've extracted Robert Williams from the Celtics and inserted George Hill to the Bucks, you suddenly see some different dynamics that truly affected this basketball game. So that's what I saw, was just an interesting adjustment with players being removed. You don't realize how connected basketball is, but little things like that, putting a player on the floor, now suddenly other guys have to rebound more. Now suddenly defensive possessions are different. Now 50-50 balls fall differently. Now you're a little faster because the smaller guys on the floor. It's just a lot of different stuff. For example, obviously because Robert Williams wasn't able to play, you leaned on Al Horford more. Because you leaned on Al Horford more, he went off for the game of his life. You know what I mean? So certain stuff you just can't account for. You would think that Robert Williams was a big having him gone is a big minus for the Celtics, but not if Al Horford's going to come in and play amazing. So that's exactly what happened. And that's pretty much the gist of it. I enjoyed this game quite a bit. I think, what stands out for me is just a moment where Giannis had, dunked on Al Horford, screamed in his face. And then Al Horford came back down and dunked on Giannis and slapped him in his face on the way out of that dunk, purposefully sending a message. And the funny thing was that I had clicked away. I was looking at something else during the initial, dunk that caused the process. The initial Giannis dunk and screaming in his face. I didn't see that, but when I got back, I was right there to catch the retaliation play. And I knew something had happened. I was saying to myself, whatever happened there, the arena may not know what's going on, but you can best believe that Al Horford and Giannis know what was going on in that play. Having not seen nothing before that, having clicked on it that exact moment, I was like, oh, okay, they had a moment. Because Al Horford don't do stuff like that. Al Horford is not a guy who's going to engage in funny antics, to my knowledge. I haven't never seen him or known of him to be a guy who partakes in tomfoolery. And certainly not retaliating against somebody like Giannis, of whom everybody loves. Something happened. And sure enough, when you see the play, you understand. Yeah, Giannis. This was a situation where Al Horford reminded Giannis that you're still little bro to me. You understand? That's what that was. Like, do not get it twisted. I remember when you were drafted, and I remember when I was with the Hawks and you wasn't doing all this. So while you sit up here screaming in my face, dunking on my head, do not forget who I am as well. And that's what I took from that for Al Horford. And that was a message that needed to be sent. I think it was a game-winning mentality situation. You know, it was what was necessary for the Celtics to win this game. Because Giannis was having his way. He was getting in their paint. He is an immovable object. He is the best player in the league. And, you know, it gets to a point where even he needs to be humbled to a degree. And I think at that moment, he was. You know, he was. Al Horford turned up the game. He turned it up, man. You saw what type of player Al Horford actually is. You know, the roles that Al Horford has had in this league has not always allowed him to shine like you actually know him to be. Because, you know, when he first got in this league, he was with the Atlanta Hawks. And, of course, he was a perennial all-star. But then had two freakishly bad pectoral tears that kept him out for almost 2 seasons. And so he worked his way back from both of those and got traded. And then that OKC situation made it seem like he had lost like 7 or 8 steps. They had him having DMPs, acting like they couldn't use him or what have you. He gets to Philadelphia or vice versa. I think he got to Philly first, had a bad year with Philly. But the 2 tenures with the Celtics were like, you know, spectacular, including this one right now. It's like, this dude should always be in a Celtic uniform because he fits in their system. He's what they need, and he plays his best for their team. So clearly, his acquisition is one of the best, period, this year. One of the best acquisitions was picking up Al Horford for the Boston Celtics, and you can see why. Because Robert Williams does have his injury issues, and Al Horford does basically everything. Everything. If you really want to know what Al Horford does for your team, name it, and it's probably that. He can assist, he can rebound, he defends, he can shoot threes, he can shoot mid-range, he can shoot inside, he shoots free throws, he rolls down the boards, it's like steals, blocks. What do you need? You know, if your team is lacking facilitation, give him the ball, let him know what the plays are. He'll make sure everybody gets their ball in their spots. He and Joakim Noah both were great at that because, you know, they both played and won championships at Florida. So it's like, look, when you're talking about a player like Al Horford, at any moment he could play well. At any moment he could hit a bunch of threes. At any moment he could pull down double-digit boards. And so you just saw his value in this league in a big playoff game where his team had a chance to go down either 3-1 or 2-2 on the road. He took the team and put it on his back. He knew that his team had some terrible offensive performances. Jason Tatum had been playing poorly in the previous game. Guys had been struggling throughout this series, but their defense had been solid. They needed scoring. And he put 30 points up on the board in a situation where Robert Williams wasn't there to ultimately give him a spell. And you know what else I think? Him socking Giannis in the mouth, and this just crossed my mind. Maybe this wasn't a part of it, but it gave him a breather. It gave them a chance to take some time away from basketball play without using an official timeout. Because what was happening, of course, because Robert Williams wasn't out there, Daniel Tice was having a not so very good game. They were relying on Al Horford even more so than they normally would if Robert Williams was out. Foul trouble had kept Grant Williams off the floor. So it was a situation where when he popped Giannis in the mouth, now they got to go look at it. Free throws got to be shot. That gave him the much-needed breather that he was needing at that moment, because the announcer himself, I think it was the Bucks announcer, had said how tired Al Horford had looked, maybe a minute or two before I clicked away. And, I only clicked away from the game for just maybe 2 or 3 possessions. When I got back, that's when he had dunked on the man, of course, and I had missed a big dunk. So, to me, Al Horford had probably not gotten a rest since I had gotten away from the game. And he hadn't had much rest since then because he had only checked out for a couple seconds for Grant Williams just to pick up his foul and had to go sit back down. So, for whatever it's worth, I think that was part of it. I think that was an extremely brilliant veteran move to simultaneously send a message to Giannis Antetokounmpo and stop the clock so he can get some rest. So anyway, all in all, Al Horford's brilliant. He showed how brilliant he is, and the Boston Celtics are alive because of him. And they're going to be headed back to their home court with home court advantage intact because they won this game. They're not playing for their playoff lives. It's a new series, and the Bucks have to figure out how they're going to get better efficiency out of their team offensively. I said it. Just because they've been winning or they found themselves in a situation where they were up at the half or what have you, I told y'all throughout this series, Giannis has not been as efficient as he needs to be. They're still down a whole 25 points in Chris Middleton. And ultimately, if he doesn't get a lot out of everybody every single night, he's going to have to score 50 points in order to win. And that's exactly what's going on. Usually he's getting a lot out of everybody, so it's working out. But tonight he didn't get as much out of guys like Bobby Portis, of whom usually pencil in for a lot. He didn't have a game like that tonight. Incorporating Hill back into the game kind of took Pat Connaughton off the floor, kind of took Grayson Allen off the floor a little more. So now you don't have the production that otherwise they were giving you, even though Grayson kind of found his shot again tonight. I thought maybe you give him a little more looks, get some offense on the board. So just little things like that, incorporating the player back into your situation, it changes quite a bit. And you saw that. Brook Lopez was doing well tonight. Once again, he's been huge defensively for them. They're going to need that to continue. But ultimately, when the Boston Celtics come in with all of their starters playing well and clicking, you're going to have a hard time. The only one who didn't really ball out was Grant Williams, and that was only because of foul trouble. Other than that, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, Al Horford, their whole starting unit, that group of guys that they rely upon the most, really showed up and showed out on the road, and that's extremely impressive. The momentum is now wearing Celtic colors, and Giannis has some things to think about. His efficiency has not been great in this series. Drew Holiday had been playing great. He had a very off night, and it hurt him. And they've dropped 2 games in this series against a very, very tough Boston Celtic team that, although has its issues scoring the ball, certainly did not tonight. So I think the Bucks, saying they're in trouble is a bit overstating it. I think they're in a very neutral position because it's 2-2 and it's a new series, and they have their strengths in this series just like their weaknesses. At the end of the day, they have a new component with George Hill back, and I think he will help them some, but ultimately they should probably get back to what was working. Wesley Matthews is somebody who's playing very well. His defense will stand out tonight for sure, even though he missed a play down the stretch of the game that I think would have helped him if he could have connected on the play. Ultimately, he's been excellent in these playoffs, overachieving beyond my wildest expectations for him. So he needs to be shouted out for sure. And I expect Bobby Portis to bounce back strong in the next game on the road because he came in tonight and didn't play well, and that's just not like Bobby. At home, to not play well. Boston's in for it on Game 5. I would have him circled on the bulletin board if I'm Ime Udoka, because he is the type of personality that's gonna be mad at himself until he gets back on the court and beats y'all up with good numbers. He ain't gonna be able to relax. He gonna be beating himself up until he do. So yeah, he gonna definitely take that frustration out on the Celtics if they don't focus a lot of what they do on him. Game 5, trust me, I see that coming. Drew Holiday as well. Both of those guys I expect to play very well in Boston, Game 5. So for whatever it's worth, man, that's what I got. The losing team took care of the ball more. The losing team run the rebounding total. Like, the Bucks did a lot of good things for themselves tonight at home. It wasn't like they played poorly, but they just could not overcome 5 for 22. And Al Horford. It's too much working against the Bucks without Chris Middleton. They can't overcome that and that. Nah. So that's really what it is, man. Not too much to say about this one. Series tied up. not surprised. I expect the Celtics to still win this series in 7. That's what I said at the beginning. That's what I'm saying right now. Celtics get the victory. I expected the Bucks to get this victory, even though that kind of would have made my own prediction a little weird. I'm glad to have been wrong to keep my ultimate prediction intact, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. But all in all, this series isn't over. It isn't going to be over anytime soon. And adjustments from Game 4 to 5 are going to be substantial, I'd imagine. Both teams probably will do some things differently. So that's pretty much it, man. That's what I got. I'm going to go check out this Golden State Warriors Memphis game right now, see if Memphis can overcome the Ja injury, and I'll get back to you guys on that one as well. BDL44. Thank y'all for watching.